Thanks for staying with us, everyone. First up, the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders and allied trade bodies are taking a stand against what they describe as unfair practices by shipping lines. They are planning to stage a protest tomorrow, Tuesday, fueled by a number of grievances, including what they say is exploitative pricing by shipping lines, arbitrary fees, and the imposition of demurrage charges even on weekends and public holidays. They are calling on the Ministry of Transport to intervene to ensure fair trade practices at the ports. Johnny Mante is Vice President of the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders.
So tomorrow, God willing, thankfully, the police will be there. We have gone to the police. They are providing us with 150 men. We meet at the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders in Tema. We'll march through the principal streets of Tema. We'll go to all the shipping lines, and then we'll meet, present our demands to these directors of the shipping lines. We've told them that they should scrap administrative charges. They should scrap fees such as public days and weekends that they don't work. They should scrap those charges. Anybody, you import a container, you go to your warehouse, you empty the container, you bring the container in safe condition to the shipping company. Yet they continue to charge you for empty container fee. In fact, they go ahead to charge importers and businesses cleaning fee. Assuming that you bring a container full of televisions, you go to your warehouse, you unstop the televisions, you return the container in same condition to the line, they are charging you for cleaning that container. We should also not forget, even with spare parts that you say, oh, probably with spare parts that will even probably drip oil. These charges are levied at the port of loading, which means that any shipping line knows that you are charged, they know the cargo you are carrying. So in terms of their voyage estimates, they include these charges, thinking that, of course, definitely your container will drip oil. So they add the cleaning fee to it. Yet, once they come to town, they charge cleaning fee again. We should not forget about the exchange rate. It is only the shipping lines, only the shipping lines that have done their own exchange rates. Look, we continue to say that government is unable to manage the exchange rate, but governments have forgotten and are not looking at the exchange rate. The leakages within the exchange rate system, it is the shipping lines. Because the point is that they are collecting tons of money. The last research that was done, for every year, the number of containers that come to town, the money that the shipping line make just on administrative charges is over 1.5 billion. So imagine dollars. So imagine them having CDs and going to the market to look for dollars. So
in other news, energy strategist Dr. Yusuf Sulemana has urged broader consultation on a proposed draft bill that aims to merge NEDCO with the Electricity Company of Ghana and separate thermal power generation from their mother company, the Volta River Authority. Staff of the Northern Electricity Distribution Company, NEDCO, have staged protests kicking against the merger, which they believe would have severe consequences on the nation. Dr. Sulemana says government must address the concerns of NEDCO staff.
I think the move is fast becoming unpopular. Mergers and acquisitions, they are not a bad idea. They are not bad idea at all. Sometimes we do that to increase efficiencies within companies. But if you look at the companies concerned in this case, you have BUI one part, VRA the other part. I think BUI and VRA, they are one of the companies, one of the SOEs within the energy sector who are independent or who are independently doing well. So if companies are doing well independently, it begs the question to ask, one would then ask why you need to combine them together. Now, and like I mentioned, combination is not a bad idea. It could be a strategic reason. But I think in this case, if you notice what is going on, there hasn't been much consultation. Other than that, the workers coming seriously against it, and even most of the stakeholders within the energy sector coming seriously against it is something to be worried about. So I want to urge that they should tread cautiously with respect to this. And I think the whole idea is not about, if you notice most of the cries, it's for one thing. You are merging companies and then you are segregating some potential cash cow within the company to stand alone, and it's not going to be manned by the same company. What I'm trying to say is that the main problem about this whole thing is the segregation of the thermal plant, nothing else. That market. If they should say today that they are not going to segregate the thermal plants from VRA, I think nobody will make noise about this. And the reason being that you ask whether the workers they have a point. I think they have. If you look at VRA, the thermal plants have been their cash cow. So this director goes to export. They get direct money from this. Now, if we segregate it and then push it out from them.
Meanwhile, ECG is grappling with severe financial difficulties. Dr. Sulemana says those challenges must be addressed before the proposed ECG netco measure.
Well, for instance, that I had taken note of the course ECG embarked on, especially the idea that they were going cashless, and I think they were not doing that. The reason why it faltered somewhere along the line is the usual things. HOE is being impacted with their independent operations. Other than that, if ECG and other HOEs had been left to independently operate in a way that they operate as a business entity, ECG will make a lot of profit. But it's not done that way, and that's why we have these problems. So what are the key issues with ECG? It's the inefficiencies, the losses that we have in the system, the losses that we have in the system, the distribution losses, the technical losses. I mean, they are still a problem to deal with. And if we can't deal with these problems and we are going ahead to merge, I think it's going to compound the problem and make it multiple. So yes, I'll urge that. I mean, ECG. Their revenue problems has to be handled well. The revenue handle and their distribution network, the infrastructure, especially the metering system, we still have a lot of loopholes within the metering system. If they handle that well and become robust and improve their financial, their cash flow, if they go cashless, I think that should be the way to go. But these things are not done, and that's how come some of the stakeholders within the energy sector are even calling that. Why don't you solve the problems individually? Make sure that ECG is efficient before you can merge it with network. Make sure that all these other companies, the liabilities that they have, they clear that before you can merge. Other than that, merging this, I think, to just compound the issues.
In other news, the Bank of Ghana signaled its intention to take some tough actions against banks and other financial institutions that are not complying with the credit reference bureaus. This caution was captured in the annual credit reporting data for 2023. Here's George Affe with more.
Under the country's credit reporting laws, all financial institutions, including commercial banks, are supposed to submit data on their good and bad clients with the credit reference bureaus. However, it appears some of these institutions are not complying with the law in terms of sharing this data with the credit reference bureaus in the country. The Bank of Ghana first had this challenge with the commercial banks as they didn't want to share information on their good clients with the bureaus, fearing that other commercial banks would go after them. But it appears this challenge has moved to other financial institutions like the microfinance and rural banks. This has resulted in a total of 16 microfinance institutions and 6 rural and community banks cautioned by the Bank of Ghana for failing to subscribe to the services of the credit reference bureaus, or let's say submit data to these institutions. The annual credit reporting data also show that the workings of these bureaus are helping to improve credit extension to businesses and individuals in the country. However, its prime aim of reducing the cost of credit is yet to be achieved years after the law was passed and the credit reference bureau started working in the country. The report has also shown that more institutions in Ghana are now turning to these credit reference bureaus to try and get information on individuals and businesses in terms of establishing their credit worthiness.
Well, join us on Zoom to discuss this is Senior Economics and Finance Lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Jaber Mohammed. Good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. First of all, why is submission of data by banks and other financial institutions to credit reference bureaus important?
Thank you so much, Darakwa, and good evening to your listeners. Banks are the lifeblood of every economy, and to the extent that their stability is going to be threatened will come from the fact that they are not able to properly align their things very well. And one of them is about credit information. Credit information is very critical to banks and also to the credit reference bureaus, as well as customers of banks. Why do I think so? Because if you look at the Bank of Ghana, they undertake monetary policy issues. And you need credit information to be able to do so, because you have to come out with interest rates, and you have to come out with forecasting, inflation, economic growth, etc. And without you having a proper information from banks, you will not be able to forecast that, because the resources are coming from the banks, and the bank will have to provide those resources to be able to lighten up the economy. So information shared by banks is crucial to the central bank to be able to undertake this vital information. Aside from that, if you look at the stability of banks, banks are supposed to be stable, and you cannot forecast the stability of banks without having proper information from banks. So it is essential for the banks to be able to provide that for their own stability, because if you are not a stable bank, it means that your customers themselves will not be willing to do business with you. So it is important that the banks are able to do so. Another issue has to do with regulation. Banks are supposed to be regulated by the central bank. And if the central bank says that you should provide credit information, it's going to facilitate their own regulatory activities. So the banks are supposed to do that so that they can enhance regulation in the banking sector. And finally, our last issue about that is the fact that you are also going to help to enhance financial inclusion. So individuals who provide that information, the banks will be able to know that, okay, fine, this is what is happening in the banking sector, and these are the gaps left, and these are the underserved financial institutions or underserved individuals, and this is what the central bank can do to support them. Now, if you look at the Credit Referencing Bureau, they are also supposed to use that information to assist them with their assessment, because they share the information among the banks, and they also share the information among critical organizations. So if you are a lender if you're a lender in a financial institution and you have a proper assessment of credit information from customers, you will know that this particular customer is a habitual defaulter. So when information is provided, you'll be able to analyze them very well, and you are able to know, okay, fine, these are the good clients that you can give loans to, and these are the bad clients that you may not be able to give loans to. Another one is that they're able to know that they're able to come out with their credit scores. So if information is provided, Credit Referencing Bureau can come out with credit scores, and the banks can also help to reduce the amount of non-performing loans as a result of the credit information that they share.
So what are the implications for the banking sector and clients if the banks are not complying?
Well, the implication is that, as I said earlier on, it's going to threaten the stability of the banks. Because if you don't provide credit information, enough information to the central bank will not be able to have the spotlight as where your issues are. What are your vulnerabilities? And how do they help to address those vulnerabilities? So the banks are going to be threatened. Now, to the individuals, once you don't provide credit information, or you don't have the individual credit information, you may end up giving loans to bad creditors. Instead of you may think that they are good creditors, and you give them the money, and at the end of the day, they'll end up defaulting. So the implication is that it's going to increase non-performing loans. And another point you have to note is that if the individuals don't provide their information, they can be restricted from accessing some essential banking services because of the fact that they do not provide the accurate information. Because you are actually a liar when you have said that you have not borrowed money from Bank A or Bank B, when you have actually borrowed the money, or you have actually defaulted from Bank A or Bank C. So when the central bank gets to realize that this is the kind of business you are into, you are going to be sanctioned, and you will be restricted from undertaking that. Also, the banks can be fined as a result of not undertaking that. So if the banks, if you remember, when the Bank of Ghana introduced that system, they were fining them between 500 Ghana cedi to 5,000 Ghana cedi. And I know that some banks were found to 1.2 billion Ghana cedis as a result of not reporting their credit information appropriately. So I believe that banks should do so, because if you don't do that, you are going to be fined. So the Bank of Ghana can issue tough measures, such as increasing the fines to them, so that they will know that this is really essential for them to provide the information to the credit referencing bureaus.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about sanctions as you talk about fines, because the Bank of Ghana is considering that. So how tough can the sanctions be? What's the best way to go around it?
Well, as I said earlier on, the fines are very important. You know, people, even as local parlance, when you go to the chief palace and you are fined the first day, and you go again and you are fined again in a hefty manner, you will not want to do anything anymore, right? So the Bank of Ghana should give them a stricter punitive measure, such as heavy fines. Because, you see, the stability of the banks is very important. If you recall that in the past, banks got collapsed because most of the banks had a lot of issues with their non-performing loans. They have serious issues with their financial information and the dealings and all of that. So when credit information is properly shared, you will notice that some of these things can be curtailed.
We are also witnessing a spike in the issuance of DAT checks. The Bank of Ghana has barred some individuals and businesses from accessing credit because of this. Is there a tougher stance, I should rather say, that the central bank can take on this issue, seeing that there is a spike?
Well, that is also another point of proper fines. And to the extent that when these consistently happen to a particular bank, it means that the bank itself is not doing its own due diligence. And the fact is that the Bank of Ghana may consider to, in a worst case scenario, to revoke the licenses of such banks, because such would threaten the financial system. And as I told you earlier on, the financial system is the lifeblood of every economy. So we wouldn't want the financial system to be threatened because of just a single bank or few banks, few nuts in the system not doing the right thing. So I believe that the central bank can be tough in terms of the fines. The central bank can be tough in terms of sanctions. So individuals who consistently issue such checks can be banned from banking transactions, especially with heavy amount of money and all of that. And some of these things happen as a result of certain businesses not having enough money in their bank account, and they end up issuing such checks because they have to deal with businesses. So, and that is not really good for the economy as a whole.
All right. Thank you for speaking with us on this holiday. Dr. Jaber Mohammed, Senior Economics and Finance Lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. I appreciate your time. You're watching Business Live. Still to come, calls for support for farmers affected by the recent drought in the northern belt of the country continue to heighten. We'll tell you about it right after this break. All right, welcome back to Business Live. Calls for support for farmers affected by the recent drought in the northern belt of the country continue to heighten as players in the grape value chain bemoan the loss to smallholder farmers. Now, some farmers have hinted that securing funding for the upcoming crop season will be daunting task due to the loss of capital caused by reduced yields resulting from the drought. Now, speaking to Joy Business at the EU session on agribusiness at the Ghana Industrial Summit and Exhibition, Seydou Mubarak, Deputy Managing Director for Antica Company Limited, an agro-input and finance support company based in WA, called for support to ensure the necessary funding for the next crop season, as yields are projected to drop by over 60%.
Is one of the biggest suppliers of maize in the country, and some of the farms were affected, and we are going to really have a problem in terms of the supply chain. But then the bigger problem even have to do with the 2025-2026 season. Farmers that have lost our crops, investors that have lost our monies, how are we going to go back into the farm? How are we going to go back and do the supplies to the farmers in 2025-2026 season? Because this is the capital we are talking of that is at risk. So if we are not able to recover fully or even partially, we are going to be in trouble. But then the levels of maize production that we saw in 2023-2024, certainly we will not be getting the same levels in this year, 2024-2025 season. In 2 months' time, we are expected to harvest, and looking at the things, certainly we will not be having the same levels as we had last year. So we have been having this call on irrigation, and I mentioned earlier on that the Black Volta is our biggest natural resource that we have in terms of water and the land valley there. We're calling on government to step in immediately to assist us to develop the Black Volta where we can use for irrigation. If we are able to do that now, we can even do some productions that can augment the shortfalls that we are talking of.
Now, the Akintina Piamenka University of Skills Training and Entrepreneurial Development, AMUSTED, is harnessing the skill sets of students from the various faculties in solving societal challenges through entrepreneurship. The AMUSTED Entrepreneurship Club will incubate or inculcate business ideas for students for successful implementation. Now, Pro Vice Chancellor Professor Isaac Boateng says aside from building successful business ventures, active partnership in business building will be fostered. Anaya Ojima was at the launch of the club and has filed this report.
AMUSTED has the mandate to provide higher education in technical, vocational and entrepreneurial training, developing skilled labor for job creation and economic development. If successful in the execution of the mandate, it is expected to deal with the graduate unemployment as students graduate with technical and entrepreneurial skills. Pro Vice Chancellor Professor Isaac Boateng explains the institution is not only focusing on training employable graduates, but teachers in technical education.
Our education is not embellished with the creativity and innovation that we need to create more jobs for ourselves. We need to break the frontiers. We need to bring light. We cannot continue to do the same thing that our predecessors, our alma maters have been doing, and we are here. We cannot do the same thing and expect a different results. So we need to change.
The AMUSTED Entrepreneurship Club is establishing a platform for collaboration among students in different faculties to turn ideas into reality. Through the university's Center for Business Incubation, ideas will be nurtured to achieve desired results.
All right, and that's it for Business Live. Check out our headlines on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. We can't guarantee reliable power supply. We're on the brink of walking away from PPA restructuring process, IPPs to government. Also, latest from the T-bills auction, government fails to meet target. Only a week of oversubscription, interest rates rise. Read more about it on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. We're back same time tomorrow.